So I think it's time we start. I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar for our Spring EU project, which is dedicated to helping family business across Europe and abroad in implementing successfully and efficiently the succession process, and also handling other key issues related to competitiveness, innovation, leadership skills that young successors need to have. And today we will be talking specifically about the leadership skills that the successors of family business we believe should acquire or develop in a post-COVID business environment with all its specific, peculiarities and characteristics. I will allow my colleague Naya Nicolaou, who is the person who has been handling the whole process of this organizers, to give you a short introduction, and then I will jump ahead and start my presentation.
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. Thanks, Celia. I'd like to introduce the speaker for today, who is Dr. Vasilia Hadjichristodoulou, who is the founder and managing director of our company, GrandExpert Consulting, which is a consulting and training organization with an expertise in EU funding services, entrepreneurship, and innovation. GrandExpert has assisted companies, startups, universities, research organizations, and other entities to receive more than 20 million euros from national and European programs in the past 11 years. Celia is also an authorized adult trainer from the Human Resource Development Authority of Cyprus, having taught more than 700 young professionals in the area of leadership and management skills across all industries. Celia was the national expert of Cyprus on the EU study SME Performance Review Report for 2 consecutive years between 2012 and 2014. And she was also the national winner of the Madame Figaro Woman Entrepreneur of the Year in 2018. Celia studied for a BSc in Accounting and Finance at LSE in the UK, and she later continued her postgraduate studies in Management Studies at Cambridge University. In 2013, she completed her PhD studies at the Management School of the University of Sheffield. She is an expert consultant in European and nationally funded programs for the past 15 years. She's a well-known trainer and speaker on the topics of obtaining funding from European and national programs, developing your employability and entrepreneurship skills, and European funding opportunities for young entrepreneurs. For the past 16 years, Celia has also been working as a part-time lecturer in local universities, teaching strategy, organizational behavior, and career and professional development. Celia is an active member of the project management team of our Spring project, which aims to help family businesses across Europe to organize and implement the succession process in an effective and professional manner. And with this, and my dog interrupting me, I'd like to give the floor to Celia.
I'm sure you're also listening to my daughter screaming outside the door. And I just sent a message to my husband saying to pick her up and not listen to her screaming. She's 5.5, guys, so apologies for that. You know how things go right now with in the past 1 year with the pandemic situation. So I think we're all seeing baby screaming or interrupting meetings and so on and so on. I have to tell you, I have to be very honest with you, as I'm always very honest. I was very worried and stressed for today's webinar for a very basic reason. I'm not an expert from an academic or a research perspective in family business. We have a very competent team of researchers and academics and consultants in the Spring consortium, in the Spring team, that have this kind of expertise. So I will only be sharing, if you want, my own personal experiences as a founder of a family business. We have done it a bit opposite to the usual structure. Usually the parents hire the kids. In my case, I started this company and I hired my father after retiring. So I know how it is. I know the dynamics of working very closely with a with a family member. I've had a huge fight with him during lunch break with my family across the table about a company issue during lunch today. So I think this may sound very familiar to most of you, having people from your family working with you. And so yes, you will be receiving all the slides and the webinars. You will be receiving the recorded webinars from all the webinars we have been conducting throughout this series of webinars. And we will collect all of them in the online platform we are now preparing for our project. You will see the slides, and you will also see the recorded video of the speaker talking, and of course, all the discussions we will be having today. I will try and make this very interactive today, not talking all the time myself, because it's very tiring for you, and it's also tiring for me. So I will be posting some polls on the screen with my questions, and I hope you can all participate and give me your ideas and feedback. So I was telling you that I was stressed because I don't have the expertise from an academic or a research perspective on the family business area. But I can say that I've been teaching leadership skills for the past 15 years in both professionals of different industries and university students. I'm a visiting lecturer. So I will be sharing with you my practical knowledge as a leader of a small company. Our company has 10 employees currently, and we're in our 12th year of operation. And also my academic and research experience, because my PhD has focused a lot on leadership skills and the human factor that determines the success of companies. So the topics I will be discussing today in our webinar relate to the current situation that European family businesses are going through. I believe that it's very important, and it may sound that it's going to take too long to give you a bit of the current situation in terms of the pandemic and the technological advancements that are happening in a very rapid pace in our society in Europe and globally. But I think this will also set the scene of how I will be linking the current situation and what's coming in the future with how the successors need to develop a specific set of skills that will make them effective in leading the family business. So the two areas of what's happening now, what we're expecting to happen in the workplace, and in terms of technology, and the skills that successors need to develop will all come together and be combined throughout the webinar. I will be also giving you my own personal experiences as an entrepreneur, as a leader of a company, because I think it's always nice to hear personal stories of a presenter. It makes it more, we come closer together and we share our own experiences. Now, just to set the scene of what I'm going to be talking today, Stephen Hawking, guys, has said that intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. Our lives have come upside down in the past 1 year. Billions of people have participated in the biggest experiment ever of the remote working trend that had begun happening in the past few years. And whether we liked it or not, billions of us participated in this nice test and worked from home, or we're still working from home, even a year after the COVID situation has started. And we were saying a year ago, before the COVID started, that we live in a VUCA environment. VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I'm sure you all agree that this has multiplied even further during the past 1 year. And in combination with the fourth industrial revolution that we're currently going through, things have become even more intense for family business, for economies at micro level, and for companies at micro level. This will not become normal again, guys. We're not going back to our usual life, to our everyday life that we had a year ago or even before. Things have changed, and a lot of the things are here to stay. There is an amazing Kenyan proverb that says, when elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers, which means that when two powerful clash, it is the powerless that suffer. And in our case, the powerless, the smaller companies like the European SMEs, which form the majority of companies at European level, are already suffering greatly in terms of cash flow, in terms of limited business activity, of having soft lockdowns or harsh lockdowns, and not having any job in the past 6 months or 1 year. And of course, leadership skills of the people that are leading these companies are now more important than ever. Being able as a good captain to lead the ship to the shore when there is under a tremendous, how do we call it in English, when there's a big storm in the water, and having the right leadership skills to overcome this storm and make it to the shore is what will differentiate successful leaders from non-successful ones. And we all agree, and hundreds of studies have been saying that the success of a company relies heavily on its senior people having the right skill set of leadership to really go through crisis, which, as Jesus Casada was saying last time, a lot of companies have gone through crisis in the previous years and they've managed to stay alive. So we learn a lot from them as well. So what is a leader? Let's put a definition to the meaning of a leader in today's workplace. These are the people that show the direction. They are able to adapt to change quickly and handle the crisis in a clear mind, with a positive outlook, and giving hope to their employees. And they pave the way towards a new economic environment. They realize that things are now changing rapidly, and they don't, keep back on following these changes, striving to keep their companies alive, make clever strategic moves, take all the opportunities that are now arising, and we will see specific cases, practical cases of companies that have taken these opportunities that have been created during the pandemic. And of course, keep their employees motivated and loyal despite all the fear that is now prevalent, and the insecurity and the stress and the burnout and all these negative issues. So today we will be talking about how a leader can develop a set of skills, the new leaders of the successors of companies. And there's a very nice study published by KPMG during the past few months, which says the following, guys. It relates, of course, to family business and how they're striving to stay alive and riding this big wave that is ahead of them. And they say the following in this KPMG study. It's called The Courage to Choose Wisely, how you choose wisely the successor of a family business. Choosing the right leader at the right time will be one of the most critical decisions you can make to secure the continued success of your business. Rarely has continuity and succession planning been more important given the recent challenges faced by family business throughout the world. So effective business leaders are now needed more than ever. And I will be talking about leadership skills in general, based on the practical and research knowledge derived all these years on a personal level and at a holistic level from our team. Yes, Tony is asking what we mean by a VUCA environment. Let me go back to the definition. VUCA, Tony, means V for volatile, U for uncertain, C for complex, and A for ambiguous. So in short, we're saying that the current working environment and business environment requires leaders to be at their feet all the time, being able to adapt to continuous changes and to a very complex environment with many interdependencies, and also to work in an unfamiliar environment outside of our expertise in cases where we're trying to enter a new market or create a new product, a new service, and so on and so on. So this has been going on, this definition of a VUCA environment, for the past 3 or 4 years, but now it has become even more intense because of the current situation. So I was saying as well that I have been an entrepreneur for the past 12 years. And here you can see just a few, pictures from different activities, different events we have implemented as a company. And it has been a very thrilling journey with a lot of ups and downs. I think what really captures these ups and downs is this nice chart, which is funny, but also very true, showing the relative joy of entrepreneurship. And I'm sure a lot of you who are entrepreneurs can associate with it. So you start very enthusiastic, very naive of what kind of challenges you're going to find in your way. And then you realize that there's a big, slope here, very hard to do it. And then you have some successes and you're happy. And then again, some failures, some, punches in the stomach from your competitors, and then some more successes. It's like a roller coaster, guys. So one day you're very happy with the success you have. Next time, you just, have a failure or a mistake or a new competitor, and so on and so on. So the definite thing we can say is that you're never bored. You are all the time on your feet, but it's very stressful and worrying, and there's a lot of sleepless night. So before the coronavirus, we were very lucky to have a big party celebrating our 10-year anniversary with all our clients, our collaborators and friends. And this was a beautiful moment back in July 2019 with the team members. And I was also very happy with my team to celebrate this award received at national level as the Woman Entrepreneur of the Year. So why am I saying these things, guys? It's not just successes and happy moments. There are also a lot of failures along the way. And I believe it's very healthy and very productive for us to talk about our failures. A lot of the times, and I think in Cyprus it's very evident because we're a small society. I come from Cyprus, which is a very small island in Europe. We don't talk about our failures. We hide them under the carpet. We shouldn't talk about them. The neighbors shouldn't know that we have failed or that we are, we've made mistakes. It's not a good thing in our society. And you lose so much in the learning of failures and how much you can become better and improve as a person, as a professional. So if there's something I've learned as an entrepreneur during these past 12 years is that you really have to get up quickly when you fall, when you have, a failure and you make mistakes. Otherwise, the competition is right at the corner to beat you. And you cannot just sit down and cry and feel sorry for yourself. You have to get up and learn from those failures. So that's one of the biggest lessons of being an entrepreneur. And it's a life lesson, it's a personal lesson used throughout the life, not just in the career. And it also gives you a lot of humility, guys, because when you have your own company and you try things to see what works and what doesn't, some of the things will be successes, some will be failures. So you really learn to have humility, not to be arrogant, and really respect your team members and serve their needs first before anyone else. You also develop what we call a growth mindset. I'm just mentioning these words because they will come up as well when we talk about leadership skills of young successors or family businesses. I don't know if you're familiar with this term. It was developed by an American psychologist, which is very well known at the world level on this term of growth mindset, by Carol Dweck, where she says that people are usually divided into two kinds of mindsets, of ways of thinking. The fixed mindset, which says that if I fail, it's because my capabilities and my intelligence is limited and there's nothing I can do about it. Whereas people who have a growth mindset say that failure is an opportunity for me to grow, to improve, to understand what I can do better, and that this is a non-ending process. It's a life process of striving to become better and improve. And this is the kind of mindset that most entrepreneurs have. And if you see the culture of very big successful organizations like Microsoft, you will read that growth mindset is part of what they're taught throughout the levels of the employees in all the countries. It's part of their culture. So you need to develop this kind of mindset. And I believe that young successors of family business, whether they're part of the family or outside of the family, and they do take on a leading role in the family, need to have this kind of mindset. So I suggest you go through some videos, maybe in YouTube, to learn more about it and how we can all develop a growth mindset if we don't already have it, or how we can improve it further. Now, an amazing quote that I've seen a few days ago and I loved it, again shows this, this stamina and persistence that entrepreneurs have, that leaders have of companies, not just family business, of any kind of company. And says the following: she was unstoppable, not because she did not have failures or doubts, but because she continued on despite them. It shows again, guys, this growth mindset that if you see somebody keep trying and trying, it doesn't mean that they've never had failures and they are, in a happy land. It means that they, continue striving to become at their best and achieve a lot for their companies, even though they've gone all through these difficulties and they had to face obstacles and overcome them. So this is again an attitude of a leader, of a positive leader who acts as a role model for their team. Now, as we said, in the post-COVID market environment, and you can see here this very beautiful picture of a person crossing the current situation and identifying opportunities and market gaps. I think you will all agree that if we look around us with a inquisitive mind and a positive outlook and an open mind, we will see that around us there are a lot of opportunities for our businesses, for our family business, or for any other kind of organization you're working, because the landscape has changed. If I told you 2 weeks ago that 2 years ago that millions of students will be taking homeschooling and they will be doing their classes online throughout the world, guys, we would probably not believe it, right? That it would happen at the same time and that teachers and students will pick up so quickly on using all these new technologies and online tools. But it happened overnight because we didn't have an option. So digital learning, online learning is here to stay for universities, for schools, for adult training organizations. And this is just one, industry that has really changed tremendously. And I'm sure we can think of many other industries that the changes occurring are here to stay. So it's important to really see this. I'm just going to give you some examples of who were some of the winners that really took advantage of the COVID situation and came out as more profitable than before. They saw the whole situation as a blessing in disguise. An example is Netflix. Only in the first quarter of 2020, they've managed to increase their number of new subscribers by 15.8 million. And of course, this number has increased even further following the first quarter of 2020. Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, TikTok, Microsoft Teams, Slack, Google Meet, Zoom, all these, technology companies have seen a tremendous increase in subscribers, users, profitability, turnover, and so on. And you might think, but these are not examples of small to medium family business. Well, I have an example of a guy, not even a company. So this guy is called Ben Williver. He's a 20-year-old British guy who managed to change his life during the lockdown by making more than £12,000 of profit per day. And how did he do that? He started thinking as a very, clever entrepreneurial mind, what do people need during the first lockdown when, the British people were staying in, for 3-4 months in a row. And during the spring of 2020, he sold thousands of tooth cleaning devices as the dentists were closed, were not working at the time. Then he sold gym equipment, you know, for people having their exercise while at home. And then he even sold mugs. He even sold cups. So he managed to, you know, make a lot of money by thinking in a very entrepreneurial, you know, an agile, flexible way of what would people need while staying at home in a quarantine, in a lockdown situation. Why am I mentioning these examples, guys, of you know, Netflix, Ben Williver, this 20-year-old guy, or Teams and Zoom? Because it's very easy for all of us to, you know, just sit around, watch the news, feel sorry for ourselves and saying, you know, how bad the economy is going, that we don't have any job in the past 6 months, 1 year, which of course is the reality. I'm not denying that it's the reality. Wouldn't it make more sense for us to see how the market conditions that have changed create new opportunities for our company in doing things differently, utilizing technologies more? Because, you know, again, this is a big step forward of becoming more digitally capable as companies. And as young leaders of family business, or as older members of family business, making a leap and taking our companies to the next stage. And another amazing example I've seen of how, you know, we can really adapt to the current situation. This is a rock band in Washington, D.C., in the USA. They really wanted to have a concert during the lockdown situation, during the COVID situation. And they said, okay, let's do it, but we have to do it in a different way. We have to keep people coming safe. So,
welcome back, everybody.
What did they do?
Now performing Race for the Prize from their album, The Soft Bulletin. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Flaming Lips.
The Flaming Lips is the name of the rock band. What did they do, guys? They gave these big bubbles, and they were even in there, the rock band. The members of the band was in the bubbles, and their audience was in the bubbles. So would you go to this concert, guys? If your favorite band was having a concert and you had to go into this bubble, would you go? Would you like this new experience? What do you think? Let me see your hands. If you want to talk, please, you can use the little hand icon, or you can write in the chat, whatever you prefer. Yes, Effie? Effie, you want to talk? You're not sure?
Can we say something, Celia? Or later?
Sorry?
Can we add something or later on?
Of course, please.
So I loved your intro about the failing part. Some people fail to align with something that when they hear it, because it means failure is out. You fail, you're out.
Which is not the case, right?
Sorry?
Which is not the case. Failure is
Not the case. So
process.
we invite people to reconsider this option.
Exactly.
We are programmed from school. Do not fail. If you fail, you're out.
You're right.
In the industry now, if you fail, you get up and you try again, just as you said. Okay? Then Denzel Washington quote his quote or someone else's quote. He says, "Fail fast, fail forward."
Exactly.
Many leaders, if they take up your invite and go, the people today, if they take up your invite and go and research, they're going to find that there is a new mindset that they can get. And failing does not mean you're out. It means you failed in what you are doing. It does not mean you're a failure.
Exactly. It's a failure for a specific incident. And if you manage to learn from it,
exactly. And
you get out stronger. You become more knowledgeable from that.
It's an event. It is not you.
Exactly. And this is the growth mindset, Keith. This is exactly what the growth mindset says if you read this theory by Carol Dweck. And I
And
totally agree.
they need to experiment and look and research and move out of the shell of when we were kids in secondary school, because we grow with it, that if you fail, you're out. Parents, you fail, you're out of school. If you follow the story of Richard Branson, he's a school dropout. But look at Richard Branson today. He's a very known billionaire, very well-known billionaire.
Of course.
Because he dropped out of school, he was a failure. But it is a belief. So it's good that we allow ourselves this space to fail, so long as we are ready to get up again.
Exactly.
Of it and condemn ourselves. Thank you, Celia.
Thank you, Keith. I love your comments. And I have to continue your argument saying that the big venture capital firms in the US, guys, you know, these big funds that invest in startups, they invest in startups more easily if they've seen that you have failed already once by trying to start your own company and failing, because they know that you've already been through the process of making mistakes and you've probably learned from it. So on your second chance, you will probably do better. But if this is your first startup attempt, they're less likely to fund you because they know that there's a lot of chance of you going through a lot of mistakes. So this is an American mentality that I think in Europe we don't see very often. And as Keith said, in Europe and our educational system, we are always striving to compete with each other in class. Who gets the highest mark, who's the best student, and if you're not a good student, then you're out. And this mentality is all wrong. And we're taught about this from a very young age, that failure is linked to ourselves, of being a failure ourselves, it's so wrong. Now, I want to show you also another example of a great company taking advantage of the coronavirus situation. They put these very big billboards in the streets, and it's orthodontics, they're dentists, these people saying this is the best time ever to get braces because nobody's going to see the braces. You're wearing the mask all the time. So they're using humor, and at the same time they're advertising braces, which is a great, I think, combination of both. You definitely going to have a look at it while you're driving your car. And another big success we had in Europe during the coronavirus situation is that the biggest acquisition of a Greek tech startup took place. This guy called Yannis Tioros found that in the Middle East, there was a big gap of online shopping of food product. And he utilized technology. He created a platform for the Middle East market. And when he started going very well, this company called InstaShop, the Greek company, one of the biggest German multinational called Delivery Hero, went and acquired this Greek startup for an amazing amount of 305 million euros. And this happened during the summer of 2020, last year. And it's the biggest ever Greek tech startup acquisition to date. Besides what's happening with the pandemic, guys, a lot of changes are also being expected to happen in the immediate future because of technological rapid changes. I'll give you some examples. You know, the things we order from online, or the food we order for delivery will arrive in our houses with drones. I know that in some European countries like the Netherlands and Germany, this is already happening. We still don't have it in Cyprus. We will be booking our hair salon appointments through machines. We won't have to call somebody to book the appointment. Our mobile phone will be talking with the machine of the hair salon, and they will be, making the appointment on their own. And of course, one of the biggest changes happening that is here to stay is what we call remote working, of allowing companies of employees to work from home. And many organizations have now realized the benefits after testing it. And in a study conducted by PwC, the US Pulse survey, they found that 54% of CFOs indicated that their companies plan to make remote work a permanent option. And I think we all understand what the advantages are for companies to allow their employees to work from home. And then what we have to think about in relation to today's topic is, how are leadership skills changing? What kind of leadership skills do you need to have to develop if your employees are working from home and you don't have the face-to-face interaction at the office as we used to have? And the study says something very nice, guys. It says that we really need to strike a balance between having a structure, but also being very flexible. What does it mean? For example, we may have a set time for meetings with our team, even if everybody's working from home, but also allowing at the same time our team members to do what they need to do before and after the meeting, like dropping their kids to school, taking some time to work out, doing other homework. They have homeschooling for their kids and so on. So this balance of, being able to monitor your employees' work, but also trusting them and giving them autonomy and flexibility. It's not an easy balance, right? I don't know if you have some experience to tell us on how you're handling this issue now, because it's not easy to being, a leader in the traditional sense of, monitoring people's performance and work, but without being able to really have them close by. Anyone who wants to say their personal experience on this? Yes?
Can I share with you, Celia?
Yes, Keith?
You mentioned a very important word, which is trust.
Yes.
As leaders, sometimes the experience teaches us not to trust, but moving forward, you cannot not trust the next one. You cannot use your past to condition your future because it creates barriers. There are people who will not allow you to trust them. They will let you down. It doesn't mean everyone will.
Of course.
With the remote working, there is no option. You either trust or you don't.
You're right.
If you are open to trust, you have a better chance that that person will change towards your trust and not run away from it and try and cheat you.
You're right.
Will be let down by some individuals? For sure. Does it mean we should be conditioned and not accept and give trust to everyone? I don't think so.
You're right. We shouldn't take past bad examples we had, bad experiences we had, as the norm and not trusting other people. Anybody else who would like to share their own feelings about this issue of balancing your traditional leadership role for your company in monitoring people's work and performance, will now showing full trust that people will be able to perform while at home with their family and the kids and everything going on in the background? Do you have any experiences on this or ideas? Okay, so the final thing I would like to mention from this study conducted very recently by PwC is that there's this keyword we will all be hearing in the past 1 year more often than before, which is well-being, right? Make well-being sense a priority. So the concern for the well-being of our employees in the workplace was a rising trend even before the pandemic, but it's arguably even more crucial as people around the world grapple with widespread grief, anxiety, stress, fear for the future, for their jobs, and of course burnout, because we say very often that now the boundaries between our personal lives and our work lives have stopped to exist. There are no boundaries, and a lot of people now work even more from home and are exhausted and they don't have any time for sound sleep and spending nice time with their family and relaxing. And again, it comes to what type of leadership skills do we have to develop as managers, as leader of family business and of any kind of business with this new remote working trend becoming the new reality, and well-being of our employees, because we don't see them. So we really need to care about checking upon them, how they are, if they're facing any trouble, if they're taking care of themselves, and and giving them mentoring and the opportunity to communicate and encourage them to speak. It's a great way for them to prevent burnout and stressful situations. So again, this comes to the whole idea of what new leadership skills we need to develop, and what's coming forth in the next years, guys. And I'll be finishing now with the general introduction of the current situation, is that artificial intelligence will become, and machine learning and robots will become part of our everyday life. What we've seen before in movies 20 or 30 years ago, when it sounded like a science fiction, will now be our everyday normal reality. Robots will be cleaning our houses, will be cooking for us, will be working next to them, and they will be part of our workforce. And new words have come into our vocabulary and are here to stay, like artificial intelligence, VR, virtual reality, Internet of Things, and big data. And we all need to adjust and learn and reskill and upskill, the two words that I have been reading a lot in the past few months, upskilling and reskilling. So developing new skills, or taking the skills we already have to the next higher level for our workforce and for us as well. Self-driving cars will also be a reality in a few years. Many companies in the West and the East are developing these cars, and the study says, you have it in Greek, but I will tell you what it says. By 2050, all the cars in the streets in the world will be self-driving cars. I'm saying to my girls that they're 9 and 6, that they won't have to have a driving license by the time they are 18. So the cars will be taking them anywhere they want. And by 2025, the Institute for the Future has found that machines will be doing most of the work. You see that in this study, in 2018, humans were doing 71% of the job. By 2022, the rate will become only 58% of human work. And by 2025, for the first time, machines will be doing more work, 52% compared to humans. So the level of automation and the rate of automation will really speed up in the following years. And of course, this creates, when we speak about this issue with kids and teenagers, they start to feel very scared of what the future will entail, saying that a lot of the jobs will be lost. So what will happen with us? Will we be able to find a job? And of course, the message is always positive. This Institute for the Future, based in San Francisco in the USA, says that what the machines take away, it also gives back with entirely new industries, entirely new types of jobs, meaning that more jobs will be created because of the technological advancements and the automation increasing, compared to the number of jobs that will be lost. So we are called to be the architects of our future, utilizing technology as a tool that will make our lives easier and take away all repetitive and boring jobs, and not feeling that machines and robots will take over our lives and we will be, their slaves and all these things that we see in movies. This is not what it's going to take, not what's going to happen. And this is shown in many studies. Now, this is the end of my intro. And now we go into the main topic of today's webinar. So if you start studying, guys, what are the key leadership skills for successors? and start writing them down, all the skills you find in studies, in professional studies or academic studies, you will end up with a very big list of leadership skills. I just put here for you a number of them that I see very often coming up in different studies. And my question to you, and I've created a small poll, is which of these skills do you believe? 3 of them, so you can choose 3 of them. I will share now the poll. Which of these skills that you see, you can choose up to 3, are the most important leadership skills that you believe as successors need to develop in order to lead their family business into further success in today's workplace? So you can choose up to 3 or less. It's up to you. And of course, I will be sharing with you the results to see which ones have received the biggest numbers of ticks.
Yes.
Great. So one of those skills that we don't hear a lot about it when we talk about leadership skills, and I think it's very important, and it's one of the mistakes I was making of not doing it when I started my company, guys, was being able to zoom out. I don't know if you understand when I say zoom out. It means stop focusing so much on everyday usual activity of your business and being able to take a step back, see the bigger picture, and start viewing the business above the business. So the common mistake we usually make as entrepreneurs or as leaders is that we're so focused and worried and stressed about deadlines that we work in the business. So what is taking place or on the business, but very few people actually work above the business. What does this mean? When we do this, the organization itself becomes the product, and the lens through which you work starts to shift. You begin to see far beyond internal product goals and can imagine a greater future and a bigger vision. So it very much links to being able to have this vision that a lot of you have selected as one of the top leadership skills, and I agree with you. So what I was saying is that if you start seeing the business not as great in selling a specific product or service, but how you can sell the whole business, then you can actually start seeing the bigger vision, the bigger picture, and you zoom out and you shift your thoughts from how will this product be a great purchase to how will the business be a great purchase. And of course, to do that, you need to devote time. You cannot spend time in doing everyday work and worrying about everyday deadlines and stuff. You have to bring on people who can manage the day-to-day demands, which of course a lot of the times is not easy because this costs a lot of money. So this is a vicious circle and cycle that small family business have to put up. Now, the visionary leader is exactly what I've just described. And in many studies, guys, when you ask executives what makes a leader, what defines a leader, the same word comes again and again in the studies in the past 20 years. This keyword is vision. And it's what inspires people, it's what motivates people, it's what makes people want to follow you and really come with you in this journey. And it gives direction and hope. And we really need hope in these negative times that we are living. We want to see the end of the tunnel and when this hope will arise again. And this is the job of a leader to do it. And we want to follow this kind of people when they give us this vision. And of course, crises like the ones we're going through now always test visions. And a lot of the time, if the vision is too ambitious or not linked to reality, the vision may not survive. And by having this vision, a leader knows how to motivate his people, her people, and influence the other family members that are part of the team to work in a productive and efficient manner. So the vision is like the glue, guys. It's what keeps people together, and it doesn't have to be only a vision. You need to have a clear strategy on how you will execute the vision with company milestones and strategy and goals and KPIs. It doesn't lead just to having a beautiful vision, but you have to also have the execution plan at hand. And of course, if we do manage to keep our team motivated, which is our most important factor, the human factor, our most important resource, this secures the success of our entire business, because it's clear that our people are our most important asset. Now, what happens now in family business, and I want to become now a bit more specific for our seminar today and in our series of webinars of family business, is that a lot of the time there is a conflict. And you can see it in the picture, one person going into one direction, the old direction, the usual, the legacy, the tradition, the usual values, the culture, whereas the successor wants to bring into the business something new, something innovative, to move to a different direction, to move to new markets, or to create new products, or to have new designs and new branding of the company. And the family business leaders say, the existing family business leaders say that choosing the right successor will be one of their most important legacies and a moment of personal pride. So they relate this selection of the successor with keeping this legacy and tradition alive. We were saying that a lot of the times family business and young family business leaders, the successors, have to face this difficulty, this dilemma of balancing vision and taking the business to the next level, and at the same time, keeping the traditions and the legacy and the values of the family business built on historical foundations and deep family values, and of course a passion for what the business does and what it stands for and the impact it has on people in society. And preserving this family identity is very important for the senior family business members. Now, what is very interesting in today's workplace is that because people live longer, in many family business, we see that as many as 3 or 4 generations are working together alongside each other, contributing to a diversity of views and ideas. So if we have very young members, millennials, working with their grandparents within the same family business, imagine how rich and multidisciplinary and multi-generational are the views expressed on the board of directors. And a great insight, I'll show you some of the slides. Nayam, can we move to the next one? A usual tension we see between older members of a family business and the younger ones is that the successors are trying to create a link, a bridge between tradition and innovation, the new and the old, meaning protecting the company legacy while building also a bridge to sustainable, innovative, creative future, which is not an easy and straightforward process. And it demands a very careful handling from both the senior and the younger members of the team. And what we see also as a tension a lot of the times in family business, and younger members have to be careful with this type of attitude, is that they feel entitled, because this is the family business of their parents or grandparents. They feel entitled for certain benefits, such as status, position, having high salaries, even if they don't have any work experience, or power in the business. And thus, it's very important, and we're talking about leadership skills and attitudes of young members of the family business. They need to develop this kind of humility that I've already mentioned before when I started today's webinar, manifested through appreciation, respect for the tradition, and what the parents have developed in the past years, and giving credit to past successes that the previous generations have achieved and the departing CSO have achieved. And the new CEO, the successors of family business, have to ensure that this legacy is kept alive and transformed into a new future form, which is not a straightforward and easy process. It's pretty, let's say, complicated. Let's move to the next slide, Naya. Some very interesting testimonials and quotes in a study conducted by KPMG in the past 1 year. This is the chairman of a large holding company in Saudi Arabia. It's called Abu Nahyan. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, guys. Mr. Khalid Abu Nahyan, so it's the same name, saying that the generations coming behind us have a different mindset. So the younger people joining now family business have a different way of thinking, a different ecosystem that isn't right or wrong, it's just different. So the older members of family business really need to understand that it doesn't mean that younger family business are doing this in a wrong way. It's just different. They are inspired by different things. They are fast, machine-oriented, and deeply involved in social media. To engage their interest in succession, to make them interested in working in the family business, there has to be a psychological attachment. They have to feel that there's a bigger purpose and value. And I remember that the previous speakers like Rania and Jesus and Colin and Panikos talk about having this bigger purpose and value for a family business so that you make younger members interested. It's important for them to see that this is a business with a social purpose, and that's what will continue to motivate them. And also Mr. George Vesti, the CEO of Vesti Holdings in the United Kingdom, says that in the past year, in the old days, the successor got a tap on the shoulder, and that was enough. You know, you get a tap on the shoulder, meaning that, okay, now it's your turn to manage our family business. But in today's environment, the generation today and the next won't buy into that. They won't accept that I have to take over the family business. If upcoming generations are impressed by our family business, if they see a role where they can have an impact and get personal satisfaction and enjoyment from the work we do, then they will be able to see themselves playing a role in its future. The approach for getting them to that destination won't be a tap on the shoulder. So it doesn't mean that because my parents or my grandparents have created a family business, then that's enough. What do the older members of a family business has to do to prepare the younger generation? They have to give the next generation a voice and appreciate that their mindset and their way of thinking is very different without being right or wrong. So we have to be coach to the younger members of a family business and help them in understanding the values and the legacy and the traditions without getting into their way of trying to really bring in innovation and creativity and new forms of doing business in the family business. We shouldn't stand on their way. So now again, next slide.
الواحد متحسب عشوائي يعني روحوا زوروه خذوا له هدية يعني بعد كان ناقصة.
We can hear somebody talking, guys. So can you please mute your phones? Now, millennial generation leaders. Millennials are those people who were born after 1985. Of course, the studies sometimes give different years of when the millennials were born after. But what is very interesting when you study their own perspective into business is that they bring a fresh perspective. And this will help in transforming the family business, uncover and explore opportunities, and of course, redefine the company's identity down the road. And it's great if these new successors have progressive ideas and a new view of the future. and assist them, the older members of the family, to assist them across in bringing these new ideas into the table. What is interesting to read when you study millennials is that they have a different business philosophy from their predecessors. They seek greater personal freedom, a better balance between life and work. They care a lot about experiences and, you know, living their lives. And the older family business leaders have to be prepared to accept that the emotional attachment to the business may not be as deep for next generation successor as it has been with first generation entrepreneurs. What does this mean, guys? Is that you know, our parents, our grandparents may have lived their whole life linking their existence with the family business, working very hard, long hours, staying up late and working. And this will not be maybe the case for millennial generation leaders, the younger members of the family business. And we shouldn't ask for them to work in the same way as the older generations have worked. So let's move to the next slide, Naya. And a very nice study here, guys, called Key Leadership Skills for a Post-COVID Workplace indicates that managers in any kind of business, not just family business, need to combine two very important leadership skills. And this is what I will be concluding today's webinar, and then I would like to hear your ideas. The two key leadership skills is the ones you have already indicated when I asked you before in the poll. It's empathy, so being able to understand yourself, manage yourself, along with understanding other people's emotions and ideas and feelings, and then combining this with agility. Agility meaning being able to react fast to changes happening internally or externally. Even though the post-COVID workplace will not look the same in every country or industry, the pandemic, of course, presents a lot of challenges and opportunities. I have given you practical examples before for this. And a lot of these traits, guys, have been going on and have been discussed for years, that they're important to have empathy and clarity and authenticity and agility. But nowadays, this have become even more crucial during times of uncertainty and upheaval, during times where our employees work from home and we need to communicate even more intensively with them just to make sure things are progressing well and that they're okay from a well-being perspective. And we need to reimagine the workplace altogether. A very interesting instead of what we're doing with the pandemic, what the experts in health are doing right now is that we're flying into a plane, an aeroplane, while it's been built. So the pilot is trying to drive an airplane while it's been built in the air. And everything is new, right? The health experts were trying to find the vaccine. Now the vaccine is out and they're trying to get it to the people. And it was a big, a long road to that. And the same will happen in businesses. We're reimagining the workplace under the new circumstances that are here to stay. And a very interesting quote by Mrs. Karen O'Dyle, financial controller of the Hall Institute of Medical Research in Melbourne, is the following: we certainly don't want to just snap back to the way we were before. We want to build on this level of flexibility that accommodates everyone. And a question I have for you, if you want, you can open your microphones by raising your hand or writing on the chat is, so how do we develop this level of agility and how do we develop this level of empathy? Because it's very easy to say to all of you, guys, you have to be agile and you have to have empathy. My question to you is, how do we do it in practice? How do we develop these two skills that are very, very important? So let's start with empathy, guys. Can you give me some examples of how we can be more empathetic with our employees, with our co-workers, with the people around us? Any ideas? or maybe agility, guys. How can we become more agile in our everyday workplace and develop this kind of mindset and culture in the company? How can we help our employees become more agile? Yes, Effie? Effie says to begin with, we should have already passed from their post and know how they feel while doing their task. Exactly. So Effie is saying that if I want to understand how one of my colleagues feels about their job and their everyday work, we need to have done that job in the past and know exactly what it entails. Very good. Ricardo says involve them for agility. Exactly, which means make people have high communication, very often communication, involve people in the process of taking decisions together and how we want to work as a team. And also Ricardo Rania says we can show employees the way and lead by example. Exactly, we're the role models. Never forget that what we do acts as the role model, as something that our employees will mimic. They will follow as an example. Josh says active listening, a great attribute of an empathetic leader. And Ricardo also adds, put ourselves in their shoes for empathy. Exactly, which is very similar to what Rania and Effie were saying. Exactly, guys. So let's move to the next slide where we will see exactly how we develop in practice this agility and empathy. So in order to lead successfully a family business, we need to start getting to know our employees. They are our most important asset, our most important resource. And if you were here last Tuesday when Mr. Jesus Casado was the trainer, the facilitator, he mentioned an example from Japan. He said that the 3,000 Japanese companies that have survived over 200 years have a common characteristic. They invest in the skills and loyalty of their people. So they put the human capital as their most important priority. And that's how they manage to succeed, by creating a culture oriented towards having happy employees who feel appreciated and they know that they will be rewarded for their performance and so on. And a lot of the times when you take on a new company, a family business, you need to sit down and have long and honest discussions with the employees of your company, the senior people, the junior people, people who are at the basic level, to understand their viewpoint of how this company works, what we can improve, what we can do better, if we have any setbacks or problems on our everyday work. All of this will really give great input to the successor. But the successor, as Josh has said, has to have very good listening skills. So sit there, ask a lot of questions, and really listen without judging, without having a defensive, mode in relation to the previous CEO or older member of the family. Let's move to the next slide. So let's see how we can get to know our employees better. Steve Jobs, guys, has already mentioned the importance of having a great team and really paying attention to your team members. He said that great things in business are never done by one person, even if that person is brilliant, clever, a genius. They are done by a team of people. So if you really want to take your company to the next level, pay attention to your team, building a strong, capable team with a lot of clever people, as he said, cleverer than you, and leave them to do their job. Let's move to the next slide, Naya. So let's see some practical ways on how you can improve your empathy, your agility, your ability to know your employees well. This is a great slide from Professor Julian Birkinshaw. He's the Dean of the London Business School, and he came to Cyprus 2 years ago and gave this nice presentation. And he said that there are very practical things you can do to get to know your employees properly. The big issue, he said, is that a lot of the times the CEO lives in a bubble the good news bubble. So the bad news never reach the CEO, because nobody wants to say the bad news to the CEO. They're afraid they will, get all the nasty comments and shouting. So only the good news reach the CEO, which this is a big problem, because if you don't know what's happening, how can you deal with it effectively and on time? One of the great things that Professor Birkinshaw suggests is the management by walking around. Guys, this is very simple. Instead of sitting all day in our office with the door closed, just go out and talk to your people in a casual way, even in the smoker's corner, as he suggests, because if you smoke and you share a cigarette with your colleagues, it's easier for them to feel at ease with you, to share what's happening, any problems they're facing, challenges in the smoker corner. It's like you feel that you're equal to equal instead of the CEO with the lower level people. He suggested skip level meetings. I'll explain what this is. Let's move to the next slide, Naya. And let's go to the next one and we'll come back to this. So skip level meetings, guys, means that if you're the CEO and you have a management team, have a meeting with the people that are one step down the chain of command, not the immediate managers, but the people who are under the immediate managers. So these meetings will give you an insight into things you may have missed if you regularly only interact with the management level. Of course, this happens if you're a big company with a lot of employees. In the case of small companies, this is not the case. But even with companies with 10 employees or 15, 20, you can have these meetings informally at a frequent level and ask basic questions like, what's happening, guys? Are you facing any problems? What can we do differently? Do you have any suggestions? And what do you see as the future trends in our industry? Just give them open-ended questions. Sit back, don't talk, don't take the lead role, and allow people to express themselves in an honest and open way. Next slide. What Effie suggested before, guys, is that it's very important before you judge a person for their job is to have felt how it is to do that specific job. A great way for a successor to understand this is by doing rotated training. So through different business units of the company, different geographic regions, and different roles, in order to understand the operations, the technology, the customers we have, their specific needs, and the culture of the company, while also getting feedback all the time by your coworkers. So once this rotation is completed and you go and take on the role of the senior manager or the CEO, you will be able to provide suggestions based on what you have seen in practice and the feedback you have received from your colleagues on how to improve the company's operations and how you can link them to key performance indicators and tangible results for the next 1 year or 2 years, and so on and so on. So this is a great way of knowing your employees, knowing the company well, and building a culture of trust and transparency and honesty with your coworkers. What's next, Naga? Now, the British people have a nice saying, which is pretty funny. And I think it also relates to companies, guys. That's why I'm sharing it with you. It says that the Queen thinks the world smells of fresh paint. So imagine the Queen organizing her visits for the year before the pandemic situation. And usually she plans her visits months in advance. She has a very nice schedule. So the people know that the Queen will be visiting us. And what do? They clean the space, they freshen up the space with fresh paint. And wherever she goes, because everything is planned, she thinks the world smells of French paint. So the same with CEOs. If the CEOs only interact with their senior management people or with 1 or 2 members of the team, they only hear what they have to say, and maybe they are hiding the bad news from them. It's very important to go out and visit normal places, not just the ones planned by the Queen, so that you don't think that your company is doing all that great, which could be not the reality happening. Next slide, Naya. And a great US show, guys, the TV show, it's called The Undercover Boss. Of course, this is great for big businesses with thousands of employees. And what does it show? You can watch it on YouTube. The CEO of large corporations in the US get dressed up. They, become a different person, and they start to work as frontline employees in their own company. Their coworkers do not recognize them, and so they feel very comfortable in being themselves. And the CEOs usually are very shocked when they realize how terribly behaved are the frontline employees and how terribly the company is managed as a whole. And this gives them a different insight into the companies. Of course, I'm not suggesting you become an undercover boss. I'm just giving you an insight on how important it is to have an honest relationship where people can really share with you what's happening. And of course, you visiting them by walking around and seeing their job. Next slide, Naya. So my last slide for today, guys, is by Mark Zuckerberg. He says that we should all treat our employees right, because if we don't, they will use your internet to look for new jobs, guys. So this is, like a black humor, that if we don't treat our people nicely, they will end up looking for a better boss, and they will be using your company's internet to do that, which is not great. I have a video to show here. Nayam, let's go to the next slide to see if I've finished the presentation. Yep, just some final takeaway points, and then we'll watch a short video, and I would like to hear your comments. It was a very exciting webinar, I must say, for me at least, guys. I'm sure for you as well. It never happened to me again. So final takeaway points. Selecting the company's successor is one of the most significant decisions in any company's life, and it's critical to find the right fit. In a family-owned business, this fit factor is even more important, more consequential, and the leadership skills we have seen today as the most important ones that we need to develop if we want to be the successors of a family business relate to being a good team leader, a good team player, knowing our employees well and communicating in an honest and effective way with them, having empathy, understanding their point of view and the difficulties they're facing on their personal lives or in their professional lives, being agile, ready to respond to changes happening internally or externally, and flexible. First of all, and you also emphasize it's important, is having a strategic mindset, seeing the big picture, zooming out, as we say, from the everyday activities, and see how the company as a whole has a great purchase value and not just the product or service we're selling, by combining this with the vision, the big picture, and creating this long-term vision and implementing it. I haven't mentioned it, but I think it's obvious that you develop the skills with practice. It's like a muscle, and the more you work on it and you're consistent with it, the more you develop it. It's not something you develop. It's not an innate knowledge or something you bring in your DNA and you're a leader all of a sudden. It's acquired through practice and hard work and consistent work. We have to understand and accept that younger generations, millennials, and the younger generations that are coming now out of school have a different mindset and different leadership styles. And we should embrace, accept, and support this by being good coaches and having the patience to mentor these young people. And the succession process is a dynamic process. It takes time, and it's different in every company, and it's not a predetermined decision. The new successor will walk his or her path step by step, developing these skills even before they take on the leadership role, but also while they have the new leading role. And they have to be driven by self-desire, really caring about doing the best for the company, not just being there because it's the family business and they don't have another option. Learning continuously while also teaching and developing their own unique leadership style based on their own character and their own personality. So no leader, guys, is the same, but there are some common attributes, the ones we discussed today, that will determine to a very large extent whether we can be successful successors of family business in the new workplace that is shaping up now in a post-COVID environment, in a fourth industrial revolution workplace with rapid technological changes. So this is it from me. Nayamo, if you can go back to the previous slide with Mark Zuckerberg. No, the one just before the final. Yep, this one. Please share your sound as well. While you're sharing the screen, you should share the sound and just press on the title of the slide to see the video we have here. So let's watch a very short video. I think you will find it very interesting. And tell me your thoughts after we watched. Naya? We can hear it.
Great.
Welcome to The Idea from Harvard Business Review. I'm Sarah Green. I'm here today with Doug Conant, who just stepped down as CEO of the Campbell Soup Company. Doug, thanks so much for coming in.
Happy to be here.
So you have a great story at Campbell's when you were there about turning around the employee engagement of that company. Tell us what happened there.
Well, we were at the time, this was back in 2001, a very toxic culture where a lot of people had been let go, and we had a very low trust environment. When I first started, it was for every 2 people we had actively engaged in our company, we had 1 person who was looking for a job. So fundamentally, we had 14,000 people working and 6,000 people looking for jobs. And since I've been there and since our team has really tackled this issue, we now have 17 people wildly engaged for every 1 person who's not. And those are world-class levels. So it's been a wonderful story. I think it's foundational for a high-performance company. You cannot expect to perform at a high level unless people are personally engaged. And they're not going to be personally engaged unless they genuinely believe that you are personally engaged in trying to make their lives better.
You have written on HBR.org about, I think, part of that, which is declaring yourself. What do you mean by that, and how does that impact engagement?
I think we have to realize that people are not mind readers. They don't know exactly what you're thinking. I think you have to tell them, and sometimes we take that for granted because we know so clearly what we're doing and why we're doing it, but people are not mind readers. You have to tell them. And by declaring yourself and saying, okay, we're going to emphasize employee engagement, we're committed to making this a place where you're personally attracted to working, by declaring that, you also hold yourself accountable to it. And so when you declare yourself, you raise the accountability and raise the expectations. That's half of it. The other half is you have to deliver. So you've got to be very careful because once you declare yourself, you have to deliver against that agenda.
I want to also ask you about another specific part of this, which is the handwritten note, because that's something that you've become known for. What's the power of that?
Well, to frame the idea, I have a practice of writing 10 to 20 notes a day to employees in our company, celebrating their successes. You see, in my line of work, I've been trained to find the busted number in a spreadsheet and find all the things that are going wrong. The entire culture is built to find things that are going wrong and fix them. My observation is that most cultures really don't celebrate contributions of real significance like they can be celebrated. So I developed this practice of writing notes to our employees all around the world, and over the course of the 10 years, when we added them all up, it was over 30,000 notes. And we only have 20,000 employees. And what's cool is wherever I would go in the world, whether it's Shanghai or Lübeck, Germany, or Paris, France, or and in Mexico City, in employee cubicles, you would find my handwritten notes posted on their bulletin boards, kind of celebrating their contribution. Now, there are a couple things that are important to know. One is they were not gratuitous notes. They related to something specifically these people had done that had enhanced our company. Two is they were handwritten, because I believe it's important that you make it personal. To me, an email's okay, but it's insufficient. If I have the time, make the time to write the note, it's something that people will treasure. You know, unfortunately, my first 25 years of my career, I think I got about 2 notes, you know, and I saved both of them. But I saw the power in it as I got started at Campbell. And it was a way for me to emphasize the strategies we were on and how important engagement was, to let people know I was paying attention. And it sent a lot of positive signals to the organization. I'm glad I did it.
One final question for you. I know a lot of executives talk about management by walking around. You actually put on a pedometer. What did you get from that exercise?
Well, we were emphasizing years ago this notion of people getting 10,000 steps in a day. And we were encouraging people to find ways to get exercise and be healthy. And my schedule is just insane. But the one thing I could do, inevitably, in the middle of a day, a half hour would free up. And so I would put my pedometer on, and I put walking shoes on so people would know I was doing my walk. And I would just start walking all over the building. Every day it'd be a different half hour or an hour or maybe at the end of the day. But I was getting my 10,000 steps in, and I also had a chance to connect with people and celebrate some of their contributions. And once again, let them know I was paying attention, that I was all in. And I believe it sent a lot of positive signals, and I loved it. And I also got 10,000 steps in a day. So, and I'm fitter for it. So it was a win-win-win all the way around.
Well, Doug, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, but that's unfortunately all the time we have. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Nadia, for sharing. Guys, what did you think of these practices? What do you think of these practices used by the CEO, who has now stepped down from Campbell Soups, a company with thousands of employees around the world? Do you see any value to what he was doing? He gave us 2 insights. One is the handwritten notes, thank you notes. Yes, insightful. As Rania said, I agree with you, Rania, very interesting. Also, management by walking around. He would put on his sports shoes and walk the 10,000 steps that our doctors are suggesting. Regarded saying very interesting, very important, and personal. That's, I think, what makes it interesting is that he was writing handwritten notes, not notes on the computer, because it makes it also much personal when you see the handwritten, when you see this handwritten. Melinda says he can do it because he sees from above the company, not involved in details. Exactly. And Melinda, this is a problem that small companies are facing today. And they have always faced that because of the small number of people involved, you end up doing the job, the everyday job, and handling everyday problems and being like a jogger, and you don't have the time of handling the company from a zoom out position. Melinda says, I'm in the process to getting out of this. I'm also, Melinda, in this process. I'm really striving to do it, but I'm ending up working a lot more hours because I also work on the everyday activities and trying to do the zooming out at the same time. So it's very, very hard. But I think it's worth the effort and the time spent on this. It really you see the company in a completely different picture, guys, if you do it. Melinda says we're doing the shift now because I start to see the company like a good to sell. Exactly. How you can have an exit strategy. The speaker next Tuesday, guys, you remember we have this webinar. These webinars on the same day, same time every Tuesday, 3:30 to 5:30 Central European time. The speaker next time is Mr. Andreas Kouparis. He's the chairman and managing director of the Cyprus Business Angels Network, where it consists of investors, wealthy investors that invest in companies and startups. And he will be talking about the option of having investors coming into your company or having an exit strategy and selling your company to other people. So I think it will be very interesting to also watch Andreas. He's very experienced, as a mentor and as a coach of a large number of SMEs and startups. Yes, and Melinda says, I worked more than 5 years together. Okay, I understand that you mean you're trying to do this shift now after working very hard on the family business. Effie, you want to say something, please?
Yes, thank you, Celia. Well, this video was amazing, even though it was, the guy spoke in very simple terms, but there are two levels. One is what you mentioned earlier, that it's important to skip hierarchy and, walk down and be involved either through a cigarette break or through just walking around and not showing that you are just walking around to check what your employees are doing, but you're just walking around because you want to work out. So that gives a completely different informal dimension. And it's not the same as summoning people in your office for a face-to-face meeting, which is too formal and structured, and people are not free to express themselves. And the other level is that it's really hard to do this without starting focusing on micromanagement. So there is a very thin balance, a very thin line, that if we as employers or as business leaders choose and try to do this, we need to do it in a way that focuses on the person and not on the task.
You're
So
right.
it shouldn't be, oh, let me show you how to solve this problem in a better way. And that's the challenging part.
You're right. Micromanagement is always something bad, as you also mentioned, Effie. And by focusing the discussion on the high-level issues of the work of the employee and not on a specific task or a specific thing they're doing at that point in time, helps in having a more open and honest discussion and what are their plans for the future, how they can develop on a professional level within the company and getting a more responsible position and so on and so on. Thank you for your feedback, Effie. I agree with you that this guy is amazing. And when we do this leadership course on a face-to-face mode, and we have employees from the same company in the seminar on the leadership training, I ask them to write thank you notes, handwritten thank you notes to any person they want. It could be from that company or from a previous employer they had. And it's very touching and moving when you see people getting up and giving the hand note to a person in the room. And they tell me, why don't we never do this? Why don't we just spend 5 minutes just saying thank you to a person who has been a mentor to us, who has taught us things, who was there when I had a bad, problem in my personal life. We forget about it and we move on, and we're so caught up on our everyday work that we forget to show appreciation to all the people who have been mentors to us. And I'm sure we've all had mentors or bad examples of how we shouldn't be. Again, you learn a lot from these people because they're, the people you want to avoid being as a leader. Again, you learn a lot by that kind of leadership, bad leaders. So my suggestion to you is, I know you're all working very hard and you spend time and tireless working out how to solve problems of the company and all the problems created by the pandemic. But if you really put aside some time in devoting your precious time and effort with your employees, sitting down and talking to them even for 5-10 minutes and see how their work is going and how they see their future in the company, you will see that that time invested will really reap out a lot of benefits, bigger benefits, loyalty, motivation, higher performance, higher productivity. So it's time that is well invested. And by saying, guys, I don't have time for this, it's like you are throwing out a great opportunity out of the window. Thank you, Rania, for your nice comments. Have a great evening. Enjoy it. Write a nice handwritten thank you note to somebody that you feel appreciation for, and send it to them even through a mobile message or an email. You will see that it will make you feel very nice with yourself, and the other person, I'm sure, will appreciate it. And let's all start saying more well done, more good work, and less criticism at work. Things will be improved.